we want you to be a part of this journey. We want you to feel included, because one thing we know is that families want to have access and they want to have voice into what's happening with their young learners. Welcome back, family. We've had so many opportunities to talk with hundreds of families in the community around our application process. And so we wanted to bring that voice and those voices into Circle Time Conversations. And so you'll have an opportunity to speak directly to us, to ask questions directly of me. And so we want you to be a part of this journey. We want you to feel included, because one thing we know is that families want to have access and they want to have voice into what's happening with their young learners. At the table, in the circle, we demystify myths around early childhood education, particularly within the city of Chicago. So let's take a couple phone calls.
Yo, what's up, Leslie? I had a quick question for you. How often do you find that families who didn't get into their first choice wind up loving their second choice school and think it's amazing?
That's a good question. And it's one that we get often. And so I want to just tell you, we have families that applied for schools that they were not for sure about, received an offer, and ended up staying, not just for pre-K, but for kindergarten as well. And so this is why it's so important for you to put down as many choices as you can when you're completing your application, because you just never know what choice might be right for you and your family.
Hey, Leslie, I have a question. What should parents focus on when choosing between schools if they're choosing between their second or third choice?
You know, when families are trying to decide between school X or school Y or community agency X or community agency Y, I think, one, it's a very personal choice, right? You have to make a decision that's right for your family. And that could mean something different for each family. It could mean it's easier for me to get to school X than school Y. It could also mean I already have another child attending school X. So that's why I want to go to that particular school. Or the choice could be similar to I walked into school or community agency X and I felt welcomed, right? I know that my child will be valued here. I felt that connection with the staff when I walked into the building. Some of it could be dependent on, I love the way they organized the meeting that they had for families and their attention to detail. So there's a lot of indicators that could make a family choose one school or one community-based organization over another. But the one thing I will leave you with is to do what's right for you and your family. Trust your instincts. Trust your gut. They never lie.
Hey, Leslie. Does pre-K really make a difference? I'm thinking about having my mom stay home with my son.
Oh, that's a good question. Does pre-K matter, especially if you have someone at home that could watch the child? And let me tell you, you're speaking to an educator, you're speaking to a district leader, you're speaking to a parent, and my answer is absolutely. It matters to send your child to pre-K. Pre-K is extremely important for a couple reasons. One, it helps get your child acclimated to school. It establishes a routine for learning. It allows your child to have an opportunity to engage with their friends, make friends, start to think about their thoughts and their feelings and their choices. It builds responsibility. Additionally, it exposes them to learning and also allows them an opportunity to be curious and continue to grow and develop as a young learner. And also the patterns that are established in preschool continue on with your student throughout life. So whether that's strong, positive attendance patterns, whether that's strong, positive social interactions, those are all critically important. So without a doubt, I would say it is absolutely extremely important for you to expose your child to some form of preschool education.
Hey Leslie, what is one piece of advice you would give to a parent struggling with disappointment over their child's pre-K placement?
So, this is the last question, and it's one that, I take very seriously. One, because my heart bleeds for families, and I know the disappointment that families feel when they don't get their choice. And so when I think about a family who has taken the time to explore, who's taken the time to be thoughtful about their choices, and then they do not get the choice or a choice that they selected, my advice to you would be to identify an alternate or another choice. It is more important for your child to be connected to a high quality pre-K program than to not. This is a pivotal point in a child's educational development. So much learning growth happens between birth and 8 years old. It's researched. We know it's to be true. And so I would encourage you to identify another placement for your child where they can get the same access to a high quality curriculum, opportunity to engage in learning with and make friends, the opportunity to grow in their responsibility and to be a part of an early childhood community. Thank you so much for your questions, family. It is my goal to be very transparent and to answer questions that you may have and to demystify. Remember, at the table, in the circle, we demystify myths around early childhood education, particularly within the city of Chicago. And so I want to invite you, maybe your question wasn't asked on camera today, but feel free to drop it in the chat and we will potentially answer it at a later podcast because we love to hear from you. You are an important part of this village and your voice matters and we need you. So those were great questions. Again, thank you, family, for sending those in and calling in to be a part of this conversation. But I want to end with just a couple things that I feel like every family should know when they're thinking about making a choice for preschool for their little one. And there's a couple things that we should just see and feel when we walk into classrooms or buildings or early childhood centers. And one is, do I see evidence of student work around, right? That shows a lot about how children are valued. They're valued so much that their work is plastered all over the room, right? I think you should also, see kids like enjoying themselves, actively engaged, moving around the room, paying attention to the teacher. Quality schools, programs, early learning centers are always following a research-based curriculum. There should be some evidence around the room when you walk in. What are the students learning about at this particular time? And it could change at different parts in the year. At the beginning of the year, they may be learning about family. They may be learning about fall or trees, but you should see evidence of what that looks and feels like and how that's showing up in spaces. And then the last thing I would say is you should feel comfortable when you come into the school, the building, the classroom, the early learning center, to ask questions. And, it should feel, the atmosphere should feel welcoming and engaging. So right off the bat, those are some things that, I typically look for when I'm walking into buildings and classrooms and early learning centers. And I will also leave you with, what works for your sister, your auntie, your cousin, your family member, your neighbor may not necessarily work for you or may not necessarily be the good fit for you. But that's why it's important for you to do your own research. That's why it's important for you to investigate, for you to visit sites yourself to get a good sense of how you feel and how you sense that your child will feel in that space. All right, family, you know what time it is. It's the take-home folder. And so I'm keeping it light on you today. It's all about applying, taking action. So please, if you're already taking action, encourage your friend, encourage your neighbor to visit our high quality programs in Chicago Public Schools and take action and apply on chicagoearlylearning.org. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.